on, man. We got to film episode 7 of the Strong AF podcast, guys. What's up? I'm your co-host, Nate Craig, joined by
Asim Fayez.
And today we're talking about something everybody fears. And you know what that is?
What is that?
It's plateauing. It's plateaus, guys. We're doing it Q&A style again, so let's just jump right into it. So, Asim, how long can you go without progress to technically call it a plateau? Is there a set amount of time, or, is that something that...
I don't know if there's anything like set in stone that is like, all right, this is the amount of weeks you'll go through before you can be like, I'm officially in a plateau.
Yeah.
I think it's more of like a checkbox.
Mental thing, maybe?
No, because there's so many factors that play into plateau. Nutrition, stress, training volume, injuries, sleep, recovery. It's mostly a recovery thing than anything. So I think what I would just say before I can definitively say you're in a plateau, check off those boxes to make sure you are sleeping, doing nutrition, hydration, all the other things. Once you check off all those boxes, then you can say a plateau. So I'd give yourself like a 2 to 4 week period. If you're seeing no progress between 2 to 4 weeks, because that should give you enough time to address most of those things, and you see no tick in the right direction, that scatter plot went flat, then yeah, you're probably in a plateau.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we talked about it before, even if you're busting your butt in the gym for 2 hours, 3 hours a day or something like that, well, guess what? There's 20 other hours in the day, 20 plus. So how you're handling your stuff outside of then,
Absolutely.
It makes a huge deal.
Absolutely.
All right. Are plateaus normal, or is that kind of an indicator you're doing something wrong?
I think a perceived plateau is pretty common for what we see, because usually that's around the time people hit us up to help them break through that. We don't see it as much here just because we manage the fatigue and everything really well.
Right.
But I would say, generally speaking, it's common because people, I jokingly say, train like Tarzan, eat like Jane. They train really hard, but then the rest of the time they kind of poor with their nutrition. Their sleep sucks right now, high stress time.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of factors that are happening outside the weight room that affect the weight room.
That makes sense, for sure. All right, next one. What is the number one mistake that beginners make that lead to early plateaus?
I would say...
And you know what? I'm actually going to tweak this a little bit. Not just say number one, but what are some common mistakes that beginners make that do lead to early plateaus like that?
So I usually always tell people, my strongest lifters are the ones who don't lift heavy all year round. The people who lead to plateaus the fastest are the ones who try to bang out weights super early on. A lot of people think to lift heavy, you have to lift heavy. And to a degree, you're right, but not every session.
Right. So you don't go in the gym every single time and max out and try to flex and ego lift and all that kind of stuff.
You're not gonna
take it easy.
Yeah, you're not gonna get stronger from maxing out. You're just expressing strength and you're getting more skillful at doing that 1 rep max. Then eventually you're gonna hit a wall. But if you think of it like how much volume you're able to recover from in a week, the technical term is called tonnage, TONNAGE. Reps times sets times weight. The amount of weight lifted per week is essentially the lever you're trying to manipulate week to week. So if you're maxing out all the time because you think you need to lift heavy and you're getting frustrated, so you're just pounding weight, especially with the bigger compound movements like squats and especially deadlifts, that just cause so much nervous system fatigue, you're going to dig yourself into a ditch you can't climb back out of. And now you're sitting there thinking, my program isn't working, or I'm not getting any better, what's happening? And then that's usually when people jump ship and switch gears, when in reality, all they needed was a little bit lighter load and maybe a little bit more sleep or a little bit more food.
I'm going to throw in a bonus question here, actually.
Hit me.
So when you're writing like custom programs, for example, like you know me, you know certain clients or whatever. And when you're writing those custom programs, how much, again, we kind of touched on it earlier. You're in the gym a couple hours. How much of that custom is you knowing that person and knowing how much sleep they're getting on average?
It's
and
everything.
Their
I'm going to
diet?
use you as a perfect example for this. So Nate over here is, he's a gym demon, meaning when he sends it on something, he fully sends it on something. So when he came here, got real amped up to lift, he pretty much lived here. That's how he ended up on the staff, was he just lived in the gym every day. So we're like, well, you're here all the time. You might as well just join the team. Welcome to the cult. So
That's facts.
so you not you regulating yourself in the gym at one point was an issue of like energy expenditure because you were maxing out, you went through that. And then the last meet you did, you kind of saw how cutting it back actually yielded better results. So for you, the lifting is not the issue. The nutrition is not the issue because for whatever reason, you're pretty freaking good at that. Your main issues, I would say, are your stress levels are really right now. You're in a phase where like we're working really hard. We're pumping out these episodes for you guys. We're doing a lot in the gym and we're doing a lot in the jiu-jitsu community as well right now. We're trying to juggle many hats at once. So both him and I are not sleeping much, and our stress in general is just really high. Not and all stress gets taxed from the same bank account, whether it's physical or emotional, whatever. It all comes from the same bank account. So because we're getting taxed heavily right now on the stress part of the bank account, which we have to tone back what's happening in the weight room. Otherwise, we're going to dig a ditch we can't come back out of. So that's why you saw in the last 3 weeks, your workouts shift. We're not doing as much heavy loads. The total volume of lifting weight-wise is lower, but we replace that with more circuit style training. So that way you're still getting that burn, you're still getting a good sweat going, and you're still able to push progress. But right now the objective is to recover and maintain and not really push numbers, because trying to push numbers while you're trying to push numbers on the socials and the business and everything else that you're trying to do, and you're juggling that and all the other stuff
like
you got
you
going
said,
in life.
it's too many things coming out of that one account.
Exactly. You're paying too much from different accounts. So I think you have to know the athlete, and more so not what's happening in the gym, because that's easy. That's 1 hour a day, sometimes 2 to 4 days a week. There's 144 hours in a week. You have to know what's happening outside the gym. And if you're sleeping like crap, and the good news is you use that, you do your sleep score and all that
Shout
stuff.
out Garmin.
Shout out Garmin. Yeah, please. You're tracking all that stuff, and we're able to see those metrics of, body battery is pretty low. Why is that? Stress is high. We're up super late editing. We're going down these rabbit holes of ideas, and then we're going to a lot of events, and then we're shooting these podcasts. And on top of that, we're running a business. So I would say, understanding all of that, it would be super unrealistic for me to be like, all right, now I need you to hit these numbers. Yeah. Which is why I think the custom is so valuable, because it allows me to kind of do that delicate dance with your life stress of, life is pushing today, life is leading the dance, let the workouts follow. And then when you have a little bit more recovery, the workouts can lead and life can follow. Does that make sense? It
does. And now I'm realizing it's not really a custom program for the gym. It's honestly a custom for kind of lifestyle.
Absolutely.
It's very cool, man. That's interesting to hear. And you know what? That kind of answered one of the questions we had of, can lack of sleep and stress lead to plateaus?
Absolutely. Because, I mean, you got to think about it. The gym is where you do the stimulus. The nutrition is where you give the workers the tools. And the sleep is where the workers actually go and do their job, aka repair your body. So your sleep directly affects your hormones, and it directly affects your recovery. So that is, by and large, the most important thing out of all the things you can do. And I'm the biggest hypocrite. I'm just going to be the first one to say this, because I sleep very little. I don't get much sleep. 4.5 hours is a great night for me right now. But understanding that, I also don't set my expectations super high in the weight room, because I'm not coming in the full version of me each time I'm here.
Yep.
So with that, I'd say sleep is by and large the most important thing, period, bar none. Screw your supplements, nutrition, all that stuff. Sleep is number one. Then I would say it's going to be your nutrition and stress. So how you handle stress, because stress is going to happen. And the stronger you get, the more physical stress you're going to learn to deal with. But also the more you progress in life, the more emotional stress eventually is going to come in. So getting really good stress management techniques is extremely important, which is why we started that whole art club in the gym and whatnot. So people had a different venue, because when you use the gym as a therapy session to relieve stress, what happens when you're injured? Or you're traveling.
Yeah, now you're just going crazy.
Exactly. So having something that is not as fragile as the weight room, as something that is an avenue to address your stress, I think is huge for helping with recovery. But I would say sleep, stress, nutrition, then your supplements and whatnot, stretching, mobility, and your Nordic sleeves, massages, and all that, and then your workouts. So I would reverse it, because I mean, only one of those hours at most is in the gym. And if you actually sit there and you record yourself working out, record how long it takes you to do a working set, not your warm-ups, a working set. The average lifter averages around 9 to 13 minutes of actual exercise in a 1 to 1.5 hour long period. So you're only really exerting for about 13 minutes in a 24-hour day.
That's crazy.
Because at that time, you're setting up, warming up, moving things around, going from one end of the gym to the other.
You're saying 13 minutes of actually
exerting.
lifting.
Because you can't count the part you're just walking around looking at your phone, scrolling through Instagram. Putting the weights back, doom scrolling on Instagram.
So
things
actually lifting on average, like 9 to 13 minutes, something like that?
Absolutely.
Holy moly.
Yeah, which is why I like those like timed rounds I do with a lot of my fighters, because immediately we're already doubling down on the total volume worked without increasing the amount of time they're in the gym.
That's interesting. Guys, you should comment down below. We want to hear how long you're actually working out. We don't want to hear that in-between set nonsense. But anyways, all right, so we've kind of tapped on this stuff. We talked about how nutrition, sleep, activity in the gym and all that's important. Let's say all of that actually is dialed in. Your nutrition's perfect. You're getting those 8 hours of Z's. You're busting your butt in the gym. Is it still possible to plateau even if you are checking all those boxes?
Yes. Let's use a very simple loading scheme as an example. Linear progression, right? Story of Milo. Guy picks up the calf, goes up and down the mountain every single day. Eventually the calf becomes a bull and the guy becomes jacked. So you're incrementally adding 5 pounds every single workout. Most linear periodization programs like Starting Strength, Strong List, 5x5, etc., all run off of that. The issue is they all have a short shelf life. For more experienced lifters, the shelf life is very short. For new lifters, shelf life is very long. There's ways to break through plateaus. And depending on where you are and how skilled of a lifter you are and how long you've been lifting, there's something in lifting called your training age. There's your actual age, how long you've been alive for.
Yep.
Then there's your training age, how long have you been training for.
I think Garmin actually has that too.
Does it?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Man,
I think I'm like 29. I was like, thank you, Garmin. No, I'm not.
So like your training age plays a factor. So someone who's newer to lifting is going to be able to stretch out the legs of that plan a lot further than someone who's been in the gym for a long time. So I would say plateaus, you dial everything in. Nutrition is good. Hydration is good. Supplements good. Recovery is good. Sleep is good. Hormones are great. But you're plugging away in the gym and now you're hitting a wall and you can't add any more weight to the bar, no matter what you do. It's four sessions in a row and you're still doing the same weight. If anything, it came back down.
Yeah, so what do I do? What do I do now?
There's a couple things you can do. If it's a short stint that's happening, you can do a step back or a mini deload. A mini deload will be where you cut volume in about half, so 50% volume or intensity or both, and you deload for a week because you're probably overdue for a deload and let your body kind of just reset and recover. The other tactic, if you don't want to deload, which is my preference, I prefer not to deload. And if I deload, I only deload a singular lift. I think where people mess this up is they deload the entire plan. You don't need to deload your bicep curls, right? You just deload your bench press, but you don't need to deload your accessories. That's how you get out of shape. So I would deload the main lift. What I would personally do instead is I would take a step back. So let's use a weight of like 500 pounds. We got 500 pounds on the bar.
Or whatever that is.
Whatever,
What
yeah.
is that? 405 forward?
It's 495.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an easy set.
It's too easy.
Yeah, but so like say if I did that and I did it for 5.
Right. Yeah.
And next session I did it for 5. And the next session I did it for 5. Clearly I'm being a dead horse. So my preference would be actually to drop back down to like maybe 465, up the reps to 7. Stretch the legs out for the 7s, then come back into the 5s. And theoretically, I should be able to get that 495 to 505 or 510, 515. The bigger the number, the smaller that jump is going to be because it's all percentage. So the weaker you are, the smaller those numbers are, the bigger those jumps are probably going to be you're going to experience. But it's more of like a 30 steps forward, 1 step back kind of approach. That is how I personally prefer to do it. So that way we're never really getting out of shape. We're just manipulating ranges. And then if all else doesn't work and you're very experienced, you've been in the gym for a long time, your body is extremely conditioned to the stimulus of training, jiu-jitsu, lifting, or both, a funny enough one that I've noticed that works extremely well, and it's exactly the same thing you would do with your insulin when it comes to carbs, is actually just stop lifting. I mean, you could reduce some body weight, but do a forced deconditioning phase.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that into the mic? Do what to get over a plateau?
A forced decondition, a strategic deconditioning phase. Essentially, you would take a week or 2 off from training. You can do some push-ups and bodyweight stuff just to kind of keep your body mobile, like definitely keep your body loose. But take time off from training. Let your body resensitize to stimulus and then come back in and train. And now your body's gonna be a little bit more sensitive to the response of stimulus. Because that's all it is. That's all a plateau is your body just became resistant to the stimulus you're constantly giving it.
And we talked about that in a previous episode, like with cardio versus strength training. Like with cardio, your body's used to, hey, you run a mile every day. It's used to it now. You're not burning as many calories. You've
Exactly.
adjusted.
So imagine like a wire cutter guy, like someone who cuts wire all day. Their forms get pretty jacked, pretty strong. But at some point it stops because it plateaus, because now it has grown to a point that can handle the stimulus. And now it doesn't need to change because the stimulus isn't changing.
So they should stop cutting wires for a little bit and then cut double.
Yeah, because otherwise they double the wires, or they
which is inconsistent to keep up.
Exactly. So I think a easy strategic way to do this would be to cut it back like a week or two, let your body decondition and come right back in. Same thing you would do with nutrition. Say you're going through a bulk and you've been bulking for 4 months, 5 months. Don't pull the plug, because that's still not a lot of time to put on a meaningful amount of tissue. By the time you cut after that, you're going to look relatively close to the same. You're not putting on as much muscle as you think. But taking time away and dropping the carbs for like a 2 to 4 week period to let your insulin kind of even out so you don't become accidentally a type 2 diabetic. So that way your body can resensitize to the carbs, resensitize to the nutrients, and you can just let your body take a break. Coming back and restarting the bulk back up again usually yields faster and more consistent results than just trying to take a linear path up, because there's no path in lifting that's just a straight linear line. You're going to hit a wall. You should milk that line. But once you hit that wall, that's when you start getting creative, and that's where the science-based stuff goes. But I'm very cautious of saying science-based lifting, because I think people take that shit way too far.
They do take it way too far, and you know what? We're running up on time. But on that topic, I remember even me when I first came in, I was trying to be a little bit too perfect. And I remember you pulled me aside, and you're like, you know what? Great form and everything, but let the animal out a little bit.
Because like, if you gave me two people, one person who lifted super hard and had shit technique, and someone who had perfect technique but never lifted anything heavy, I'll take the person who lifts super hard, because you can teach technique, but you can't teach animal. And if you're just perfectly lifting 135 all your life, 135 will eventually stop changing you. But no one remember the guy who lifted 135 in perfect form. Yeah. So just depending on what your goals are, you're gonna have to stress your body and change it to get it to change. So you want to have good enough technique to maintain safe position to allow you to progress without a higher risk for injury, but you still need to stress your system. But after stressing your system for a period of time, just like work, imagine you just plug in the work, and actually this is a perfect example. Imagine right now, like what we're doing, we're working super hard, we're doing our thing, and we have many things that we're trying to accomplish at once, right? We had the NGA that just happened. We had the other partnerships that we just created, the podcast launching, and we're pumping out episodes like crazy. That was a huge steep learning curve, because both of us don't know what the fuck we were doing with that. So we had to figure all that out. Shout out to Raph for helping us out, and Will behind the cam for helping us out with that. We're grinding, and we can feel, like this week, we definitely both felt the body battery low. So technically this would be where you would start to say, okay, we're probably going to hit a plateau physically, because like our bodies are just tired. But when that trip I just booked, right, in 2 weeks, you're leaving in a week, we're going to be able to take a little bit of time off. That's our forced deload. When we come back, we're going to be recharged and ready to go, resensitized to the stimulus of doing this, and then we can continue progress forward. That's the same thing how the body works. Same thing how your insulin works. So you push, but you have to stress it out. If we were just doing the same thing every day and just coasting and work, we wouldn't need a recovery. We wouldn't need a weekend to chill out.
Right.
Because it's not that stressful. But because it's not that stressful and we're not pushing that hard, we're probably not seeing much change that rapidly. So if you're pushing truly hard and you're truly pushing yourself in the weight room, and you're truly pushing yourself outside the weight room, you're going to need eventually to take a break. And that can either be a deload where it's a 50% reduction-ish. It could be a step back, a program shift, or if all else fails, a forced time off in the gym. Just take some time off and go. I mean, if I had a couple fighters and grapplers, one guy actually, one of our clients, Cam, he's been with us for over 3 years now. And what we did, and we looked at all of his performances, and what we realized was the comps that he had the best, and I've noticed there's a couple other fighters, not all of them, a couple of them, the ones who had the best performances, sometimes it coincided with the weeks they weren't able to train at all.
So because they were able to take a breather for
absolutely.
a second.
Their body's fully recovered, and now mentally they're fresh and physically they're fresh. So like Pans, I think it was like 2 years ago or a year ago, he just mollywopped everybody, just walked the whole bracket. I don't even think he really looked like he stressed that entire bracket, but he was at a conference that whole week. He could not train, and he was working the whole time, but it was his work, not jiu-jitsu. I've noticed that with some MMA guys. I've noticed that with it's different for everybody. What I am noticing though is there's a common denominator of like taking a short break and then coming in and having a higher performance. Like my deadlift. When I hit that huge PR last year, I took a 3-week period off of deadlifting altogether. Came back. I mean, I was still lifting. I was doing other things, but lower stress things. Came back and lifted. And that's when I realized, okay, last year I added 100 pounds to a deadlift, and I think it was 16 or 17 total sessions in the entire calendar year of deadlifting. But I was able to add 100 pounds and get to 605 in my deadlift without changing my body weight much. So to me, that was a huge indicator of managing stress and trying to avoid plateaus, because the deadlift for sure is one of those ones that induces plateaus heavily, like fatigue, because it just taxes your body so hard.
Right.
So I was trying to figure out how can I get this number to jump without having to do the lift itself, so I can train more and train hard, but not really induce that kind of fatigue. And that's where we figured out, if we do A, B, C, these 3 lifts, it yields these jumps in the deadlift. So instead of deadlifting, I could just do these things and just make sure I stay skillful. And as long as I stay skillful, I do these 3 things. These 3 things make the deadlift go up without me having to ever have to deadlift. It's like I unlocked the cheat code, and I'm like, add 100 pounds. We did this. We found the same combination for David. He was able to add 100 pounds to a squat in 8 months. He hit 535
for multiple reps.
Yeah. And that was in a very short amount of period of time. And I mean, 535 at a sub 200 pound body weight is nothing.
That's strong.
That's pretty freaking strong. He's a very strong boy. But it's like, so things like that. As soon as we realize, we don't have to do that main lift. We just do these things and it makes that thing go. Now we can kind of avoid these plateaus.
Awesome. So to kind of full circle things, guys. Yeah. I mean, if you're plateauing, maybe take a breather for a little bit. Listen to some of the stuff that he said. But first things first, make sure your sleep is dialed in, your nutrition's dialed in, and make sure your exercise is also dialed in.
Yep.
And you're actually, unleashing the animal a little bit in the gym.
Yeah.
But guys, I think that's a good stopping point. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to episode 7 of the Strong AF Club podcast. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.